The tilt is real.
Tilt is real.
This is when the tilt is real.
Welcome to another episode of The Tilt is Real Fantasy Podcast. Coming to you live from the chef's table, here are your hosts, James Crease and Juan Pena.
Let's go. Welcome in, Tilters. It is Monday, September 21st, and we are getting live for Monday Night Football. We're going to give you a little bit of a recap on what transpired over on Sunday. We had a bunch of great games and some thuds, too. So we're going to get right into it. And, of course, the first piece of business, man, is the injuries. Unfortunately, we're going to start a little bit on a sour note. There are so many things going on today, man.
You got to rip off the Band-Aid, Chef. We got to get through it so we can get to the positive stuff. You got to get through the unfortunate of
yeah. Yep. And we'll start with the worst one for me, I guess. And I guess we can go right into the Giants versus the Bears. The Bears won 17-13. And we had the worst possible thing happen in Saquon Barkley out for the season with a torn ACL. Man, that just hurts. I'm left speechless. I'm going to be riding the waiver wire in a couple leagues this year.
I think a lot of people are. It's going to be like that. So
Absolutely.
many. This was unprecedented. This was a crazy week. It was unbelievable. Every time I turned around, there was another guy down. There was. It's Chris Hayes. It was a tough week. So there's going to be a lot of making up to do. There's going to be waiver wires are going to be on fire, and we're going to be here to help out with that.
Yeah, this one really hurt because the play before he injured his elbow, it looked like he hyperextended it. And I'm like, oh no, that looks like a dislocated elbow, dude. And he just came out on the next play and still Saquon trying to be Saquon and blew the ACL, and it's just really unfortunate.
When he ripped his helmet off, I knew it was bad. I knew it was going to be bad.
Yeah. On the replay, you could see it was wobbling, so it's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Another key note for this game: Sterling Shepard caught the turf toe. He's going to be out for at least 2 weeks. It does not look good for the Giants in Week 3, going up against the 49ers. That's going to be tough.
They're another team that we'll get to a little bit later on, Chef, that suffered injuries of their own, and their whole team is down. Like they lost 8 or 9 different players. They already had a few people on IR, and we'll get more into them. But yeah, the Giants are definitely going to go into that game shorthanded without Saquon. I mean, he was the 102, right? Consensus, right. 102, maybe 103 in every fantasy draft. You built your entire team around him. You were thrilled when you got him. You know what I mean? And it's unfortunate when he goes down.
Absolutely unfortunate. I'm still heartbroken. I didn't really sleep too much last night. Pardon my appearance, if so.
Injuries are nuts this year. Chris Hayes is correct. Anthony Miller, just talking about Bears and Giants. Anthony Miller was one who did really well for your fantasy team if you're playing the golf rules, where the lowest score wins.
Lowest score. He's got me on the I was hyping up Anthony Miller, and I thought the opportunity against the Giants was going to be outstanding, and it didn't end up being that game. It ended up being more of a David Montgomery run the ball. They were trying to just put the Giants away and kind of ice that game and just playing not to lose, kind of.
The one thing I took away from this game with David Montgomery, he finished 16 carries, 82 yards, and 45 yards and 3 receptions for a touchdown. He seemed to get stronger as the game went on. And that was something that I saw. He broke 2 10-plus yard runs in the fourth quarter late as they were winding down the clock, and that Giants defense just looked beat up. They didn't really have anything else to give, and they were just running out the clock. I get it. One other takeaway that I liked from here was Mooney. I don't remember his first name. Let's see. Darnell Mooney. Okay, he only had three receptions on 3 targets, but he did get into the end zone, and that's the second week in a row that he got 3 targets and caught all 3 targets. So that's a little sneaky tip on the Bears side of the ball. Other than that, you're pretty much staying away from Trubisky. Allen Robinson put up pretty much a dud. Let me see if I can get
It
to it.
wasn't a very good game. The only one that had a good game was David Montgomery. Tariq Cohen was absolutely terrible, like worthless. They didn't use him. It's not his fault. I guess it's usage, but the game script didn't dictate for it to be a passing game for the Bears, and they just wanted to hold on to that game. It shouldn't have been as close as it was, and they kind of led the Giants back into the game late. So that's why you saw it just be a heavy Montgomery game, and it's just it was
Yeah,
one.
and then on the Giants side of the ball, Daniel Jones really didn't do much. Deion Lewis put up 15.6 fantasy points, 10 carries for 20 yards and a touchdown,
In
4
the end zone.
receptions and 36 yards. Yeah, he found the end zone. That was a good sign. All the receivers for the Giants really didn't do too much. We mentioned Shepard going out with the turf toe, and then Evan Ingram, a bright side of things, 6 for 65. He finishes the day with 12.5 fantasy points in PPR.
Yeah, he's going
So
to be
that's
heavily targeted, and he's the guy that going forward, that's the Giant you want to own for sure. If you're going to own any of them, him and then Darius Slayton, with Sterling Shepard also being on that injury report. I would say Darius Slayton and Evan Ingram get an uptick, and maybe Deion Lewis in the passing game because they are probably going to be playing from behind a lot.
Yeah, so if you pick up Deion Lewis this week following the Saquon injury, are you starting Deion Lewis, or are you definitely, or for the very least, at least adding him to your roster or spending fab on him?
I think it's a decent roster ad. The unfortunate thing is we don't know who it's going to be, Wayne Gallman or Deion Lewis.
Yeah.
So if you do spend your fab, it's going to be tough. I would try to wait until the last minute tomorrow to see who probably will get the starting role. I'm assuming it is Deion Lewis that'll be the primary back. But do you want a primary back in that system? I really don't think so. If anybody, you'd want the pass catching back in Deion Lewis, though.
Right. That team is going to scare people off, and they're not going in the right direction. So that makes it a little bit tough. But right now, given all of the other injuries, chances are you might have to put a Deion Lewis in your flex coming up this week, especially in deeper leagues or 12-team leagues. Like, you might have to face that fact. And also look for, I don't know what happened with what the result was today, but I know that Devontae Freeman was there. So Devontae Freeman went in and had a workout. I don't know if he's going to sign with the team, but I wouldn't expect them to let him leave the building if he's in any kind of shape, because that gives him a solid running back to be able to replace Saquon, and you can kind of survive with Devontae Freeman there.
Yeah, no news yet. I've been watching it all day, dude.
I know you
I'm
have.
watching real close. You know me with my Giants, bro.
Right.
But yeah, it's an unfortunate thing. But hey, things happen, and we got to move on in fantasy. My heart goes out to Saquon. You're my boy, Blue.
That's your man.
It's
Nice.
my man's in them. 2 years in a row now with the injuries. It's just like, ouch. It
It's
hurts.
unfortunate. I wanted to see him be the next coming of something special, some Barry Sanders type, production, crazy numbers. But
I'm getting down in the dumps. Let's move on to the next game.
Yeah. Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's
Move on to something more positive, which was exciting to watch. The Atlanta Falcons came into Dallas, and Dallas, behind 20 points, comes in and wins 40-39, which is an amazing comeback down to the last minute. I think Atlanta missed the field goal at the end. Is that what happened? I can't remember the end of the game.
Yeah, you want to hear the crazy statistics, Chef? The teams were 140-0 in history when scoring 39 points and not turning the ball over, let alone having that kind of a lead. 140-0, it never happened before. It was unprecedented. That onside kick alone, like, why didn't someone just drop onto the ball? There's so many different questions. Julio with the drop on the Russell Gage throw, he put it in his hands, and it's Julio Jones, dude, and he dropped it. Like, that one hurt. That one hurt.
Yeah, you mentioned Julio Jones. He's dealing with a hamstring, and they didn't say anything really during the game. They came out afterward, and that's why we saw Calvin Ridley go for 7 on 10 targets for 109 and 2 touchdowns. He finished as the wide receiver 1 this week so far. We still have Monday night to go, and we are 20 minutes away from kickoff, FYI.
He could have had a couple more too. He had a couple more opportunities where Ryan chose to go in a different direction, but he was open a few other times, especially down in the red zone. So he's a problem going forward. And Russell Gage now, if there's anything significant with Julio Jones going forward, and maybe either way, Russell Gage is somebody you want to keep your eye on or a roster right away, especially with all these injuries. Like, I'd be surprised if Russell Gage isn't owned in most leagues right now.
Yeah, Matt Ryan was a beast. He finished as QB6 for the week. 24 attempts, 24 out of 36 for 273 and 4 touchdowns. Awesome game from Matt Ryan. If you have him in your fantasy roster, you're not most likely taking him out anytime soon. He pairs well. He likes to spread the ball around. We talk about Russell Gage yet? Russell Gage. Yeah, if you didn't pick him up on waivers when we said it last week, definitely do it now. Especially with the Julio Jones news. He killed it for 646 and 1 touchdown. He's going to be good, man. I'm liking him. Back-to-back weeks of at least 9 targets. That's just awesome.
Yeah, that opportunity is king in fantasy football, and that's it right there. Hayden Hurst is another one who had a really good game, and I don't know if that was part of the game plan from the Cowboys to try to take away the outside, and then you saw Gage and Hurst be able to have success inside. So Hurst going forward is somebody else that you're going to have to roster. I know there's a lot of tight ends specifically in this game that produced, and Schultz is real, right?
Schultz may be real. I think the targets are more real, and Hayden Hurst finishes number 7. Schultz, man, I was, oh my gosh, he balled out 9 for 10 for 88 yards, and he finished as number 6 right in front of Hayden Hurst.
Yeah, so both tight ends are relevant, yeah.
Yeah, and if you guys were watching on Sunday, we posted that chart of those possible waiver wire ads, late ads. Hopefully you guys went out and picked up some of those guys on that list. And that was great. We'll probably do that again for you on Sunday this week. And we mentioned Schultz, Dak QB1, finished QB1 on the week, 3 rushing touchdowns and 450 passing yards for another and 1 more touchdown. That's just amazing, man. Dak is the truth. I don't see anything taking away from that. They're letting him throw the ball. They're letting him make decisions at the goal line. My man ran the ball 5 times and 3 touchdowns. Come on.
Yeah, he was like Cam Newton out there, basically.
He was like Cam Newton or Josh Allen.
But Chef, how much of that do we attribute though to the Atlanta Falcons being a really bad defense? Because you saw Russell Wilson pitch a perfect game against them the week before. Like Russ could have done anything he wanted out there, and he made it look easy in week 1, and he was 31 of 35, dude. And he had 4 touchdowns and 4 incomplete passes. He almost had a perfect game against Atlanta the week before. So then Dak carves him up. I think it might be an Atlanta defense being really bad, combined with the fact that Dak is really good and the Cowboys offense is going to be okay, but they shouldn't have let him back in that game. Those stats were compiled at the end. I'm not crazy about calling it I know he was the QB1 this week, and I'm not a Dak hater in any way, but I'd be worried about that Atlanta defense being the problem.
Just going forward, and this is just a note for you guys out there, he plays Seattle, Cleveland, and the Giants in the next 3 games. Dak Prescott.
Then he's all right then. Yeah. You saw him get to Seattle last night. So and going forward, I mean, you were never going to consider benching him or trading him or anything. He's your guy if you started him. So I guess it's warranted. Maybe he's going to have a fantastic season. He's going to have a shot to push for that QB1 then. I mean, he finished QB2 last year. Yeah.
We got a little question right here coming in from our boy Chris Hayes. Starting both Matty Ice and Ridley. Great.
Points of Palooza. I love it.
Points of Palooza. That's great. You
That's
continue
called
to
a
ride
great
that
stack,
sweet
man.
wave. I think you continue to ride that sweet wave, man. I think it's ride it while you got it.
No letdown coming. That Atlanta offense is always going to be having to play from behind. They're always going to have to be high scoring. Matt Ryan will probably want to throw it 700 times, not 600 times like last year. So the targets are there, and already there was a point, and then Chris is my man, so we're contemporaries on this one. There was a point when Roddy White was one of the best receivers in the NFL, and a young player named Julio Jones came in, only had 900 yards his first year, 1,100 his second year, third year, boom, out. And it was time for Roddy White to be in his early 30s and start to deal with the injuries. Julio Jones, hamstring, a little banged up last year. Same thing, he's always a little banged up. I think it's Calvin Ridley season. I think you're perfectly okay. I have him in a bunch of leagues. I own him everywhere, and I am fully confident for him going forward. The opportunity that he's going to have is almost unequal. He's the man there.
Just a note, the Falcons' next 4 games are Chicago, Green Bay, Carolina, Minnesota.
I'm good with all those. Yeah. Calvin Ridley, fire him up every week.
Yeah, you have to fire him up, and especially since the run game isn't cemented. That's not their way of doing things. They want to throw the ball.
Yeah, and they have to, Chef, with that bad of a defense. That's a team that's going to always have a positive game script for the offense to succeed. They're going to always have to be doing that.
Okay, in another matchup that the quarterbacks really didn't throw the ball too much, Detroit versus Green Bay.
They didn't
Detroit
have
visits Green Bay and Lambeau, and yeah, the Packers win 42-21. Key
It was a
injuries.
blowout.
Yeah, it was pretty much a blowout, and Detroit really couldn't get anything going well. Obviously, their key wide receiver Kenny Galladay out with a hamstring. Fortunate enough that he is on track to play Week 3, and I am hoping he does.
Yeah, I have shares of Kenny Galladay. So does Mr. Swanson in our Dynasty League. So yeah, we all want Kenny Galladay to come back, and it showed that they're struggling. They're missing something, but it might have been more a thing of the Green Bay defense, and then they just got up, and then that one bad throw by Stafford, the interception that he threw out to the flat, and it was a pick six where the corner had all day to just jump the route. That kind of demoralized them. At that point, they're down 21. Aaron Jones is running all over the field. He's doing everything he wants, and we talked on during the offseason, Chef, about Aaron Jones being a compiler, and he was able to compile yesterday.
Yeah, he finished with 3 touchdowns on the day. He finished as running back 1 overall, 18 carries, 168 yards, 2 on the ground, and then 4 receptions for 68 yards and a touchdown through the air. Jamal Williams, not even really a part of this game. Yeah, not a factor at all, unfortunately for him.
Yeah, I mean, Jones ripped off that long run. That's what started it all. Like, once he had that long run, it's like, uh-oh, it might be one of those games where Aaron Jones is going to put up some huge, huge numbers. And once you get up that big, the other team just has to struggle and come from behind, and there isn't much for them to be able to do. And usually the Packers would play a little more vanilla and drop back, but yesterday they didn't. They kept the pressure on Stafford the whole game, and a little bit of success from DeAndre Swift. Chef, you know what I mean? Not too much.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, he finished as the highest fantasy points with 12.2, but we know it's going to be a timeshare moving forward. You can't trust Matt Patricia for anything. It stinks. He looks like the dwarf from Lord of the Rings. I hate it.
Oh, he does look like that dude. Yeah. Resemblance.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah.
I never thought about that before. Yikes.
Two other things I want to point out. Devontae Adams, only 6.6 fantasy points for the day. He was dealing with some kind of injury. I'm not sure exactly what it was. A hamstring. It was a hamstring injury. He only went 3 for 36 and left during the second half of that game.
So maybe that's why more emphasis on the run. But then again, like, they were up, and that game was pretty much over, at halftime or early third quarter.
And a quick thing, we talked Jay Sternberger up during the offseason as the tight end, and I noticed Robert Tonyan finished with 3 for 25 and a touchdown. Jay Sternberger finished with a goose egg, and he fumbled. I mean, he dropped his only pass. And then I think he drew an offsides, and they took him out of the game. He was only mainly used for blocking after that.
He's a young tight end, so I wasn't expecting much from him. We did talk him up during the offseason, and you figure somebody's got to catch the ball for Aaron Rodgers, but this wasn't the game for that at all.
Yeah, the only other key fantasy guys that played, obviously Marvin Jones, 12.3 fantasy points. He helped you out. Those are decent wide receiver 3 numbers. And TJ Hawkinson finished as tight end 18, a letdown. He did not get into the end zone, only finishing for 4 for 62 through the air.
It's a little lower than you want, but 4 for 62 is about average for a tight end. If he were to do that all season, he's pushing 1,000 yards, and it's not, and 60 plus catches. That's like Mark Andrews' numbers. So it's actually a decent game for a tight end. It's not terrible.
Yeah, no, it's not terrible at all. There were a lot more better games this week.
It was
especially
just
that Higbee game. And I benched Higbee. No, I didn't bench Higbee in a league. I benched Jonnu for TJ Hawkinson in one league.
In one league, yeah.
Yeah, in one league, and
Right.
Jonnu went off as well. And it stinks, and I'm going to wind up losing that league this week.
But you
It's always
started
tough.
him in a bunch of other leagues, didn't you?
Yeah, I had no choice. But yeah.
Didn't you pull out somebody to put Jonnu in last minute?
Yeah, I pulled out Herndon.
Yeah, that's right. That's it. There it is.
Look,
Yeah, I pulled
So
out Herndon.
speaking of taking out a guy and putting in another one, is there anyone who hurt outside of the injuries that happened this week? Is there anyone who hurt people more than Naeem Hines as like that fill-in flex instant, gotta buy him, gotta play him kind of deal? and then
Yeah.
do nothing in that Indianapolis and Minnesota game.
Yeah, the Indianapolis Minnesota game, that was tough. Naeem Hines, no love for Naeem Hines, man.
It
None
was all
whatsoever.
Jonathan Taylor.
Oh
Yeah.
man. Yeah, well, that's what they drafted him for. You know, he is a complete back, even though he did not catch in college as much. He did have 2 receptions for 9 yards in this game, and Naeem Hines only had 1 reception for 4 yards. So he beat him in the receiving game, and it was positive gain script all the way through. Pretty much, they led this game throughout. Minnesota couldn't get anything going through the air. Once again, Kirk Cousins puts up 1.5 points. I mean, that's not going to do it for your fantasy team or your football team.
Or I mean, Philip Rivers only put up 10.8 fantasy points too, which is still. It's a 28-11 victory for the Colts, but Philip Rivers didn't really get it done for you.
Yeah, it was the run game. It was the run game
That's
for Indianapolis that really got it done. Stud of the day, Jonathan Taylor with 26 carries for 101 yards. 101.
His first 100-yard game and his first touchdown, all that, and good for him. Like we've been advocates of his the entire offseason. We've been talking him up, hyping him up. I even wrote an article about him being Edgerrin James. As far as doppelganger, who he looks like. And yesterday he looked it, man. He looked shifty. He got the workload. He carried the ball 25 plus times. Like when you're getting those carries and you're getting that work and that offensive line, we thought of it from the beginning. I was still surprised though to see the Naeem Hines drop off because he was used in the run game last week. Even though he was supposed to be the pass catching back, he was used in the run game. And this week he saw no love whatsoever. So I don't predict that to go forward. I predict going forward that they're still going to need Naeem Hines, and he's still somebody you should roster. You shouldn't go crazy and just drop him. It's not like when Chris Hayes hates Tariq Cohen. It's not that bad.
Especially for next week, because I'm pretty sure do the Colts play the Jets next week?
No, do they?
I will look into that right away.
I think they do. They do.
If they do,
correct, they do. The next 3 games are the Jets, Chicago, Cleveland, and then they have Cincinnati before the bye week in week 7.
Then it's another Jonathan Taylor game. I don't know. Maybe the Naeem Hines love should.
It's the only bright spot of my Sunday of losing Saquon Barkley because the one league I did lose him in, I reached for Jonathan Taylor, and thank God I got him when I did. Otherwise, I'd be out without a number 1 running back. He finishes RB 13 this week, and it looks like he's going to have a bright future this season, which is thank God.
Arrow up.
Absolutely.
Speaking of arrow up, Chef, in that same game, Mo Alley Cox, big, large human being, like 6'7", 280, something ridiculous.
He's a beast of a man. Right? He's a beast of a man.
Even when Jack Doyle comes back healthy, I don't know if Jack Doyle has a job anymore.
Right.
Mo Alley Cox has been there for a while, and for some reason,
he showed up, man.
He was young.
He showed up today.
He's young. I mean, it takes tight ends a year or two to make an impact, especially a raw, huge human like that. Like it takes a while. But
this is his fourth year in the league. He's listed as 6'5", 267, but man, he looks like he's 7'1" out there.
267, I was a little off, but he's a big human dude, and for that position, for him to be that big, 265 is a big dude, man.
And he crushed it. He crushed it. 16.1 fantasy points for tight end number 9 on the week.
Man, 111 yards.
Yeah, all he needed was a touchdown. And you know what? That's a good point just to watch going forward with those matchups. Yes, it's going to be a run first thing. We talk about Jonathan Taylor, but if Mo Alley Cox gets that relationship with Philip Rivers loves his tight ends.
He loves them.
And you saw Jordan Reed carve up the Jets. So maybe this week, Mo Alley Cox is somebody who could be fantasy viable and find the end zone again and be targeted 8, 9, 10 times.
And most likely he's out there. He's out there on your wire. So if you're one of the owners of the tight ends who are injured or falling off or not producing the way they should be, I mean, I'm a Zach Ertz owner. Honestly, I would consider adding Mo Alley Cox to my roster just if the Zach Ertz kind of doesn't do what it's been doing.
Yeah, go out and get Mo Alley Cox. He's definitely available in your leagues. Only owned as of Sunday, 0.8%.
Good gravy.
Yeah, he was definitely a streamer of the week.
Yeah. He won somebody some money in DFS in those daily.
I'm sure they did.
For sure.
All right, moving right along. The Buffalo Bills did some damage down in Miami, but it was a close game.
Easy. Yeah, it wasn't damage. They won a hard-fought battle,
I'm just saying, as far as fantasy points go, there was some fantasy points scored in this game on both sides of the ball.
Josh Allen lit us up.
Josh Allen, man.
You want to talk about him, Peasy? Go ahead.
I would love to. I know Chef wasn't as high on Josh Allen to start the season. I'm not saying that he's going to be able to continue this production.
He might turn my favor around just for the simple fact that yeah, man. But his schedule is like the first couple games. We'll see how it goes.
That's true. 417 yards, 4 touchdowns, finishing with 34.5 fantasy points as the QB3. I mean, that is a great game for Josh Allen. And he didn't even do it on the ground. He had 2 carries for 20 yards, I'm pretty sure. Everything else was done through the air. A lot of chunk yards. I mean, the guy looked electric. It was against the Dolphins. But again, not to take anything away from the Dolphins, because the Dolphins
we're better than we were. We're on the way up.
Listen, they won by 3 points. The Dolphins fought the entire way through. It could have gone either way. I had the Bills in my parlay, and I started to get a little nervous towards the end. So
I think it was that Dolphins defensive front, man, that kind of slowed the running game down. Yeah. You only saw Allen carry the ball for four times for 18 yards, and Singletary and Moss were pretty pedestrian in that sense. Both of them not even breaking 10 fantasy points this week. So I think it was that air yardage that he had to throw the ball up against Miami this week, and he did it again. Big outcome for Diggs. Finishes wide receiver 2 this week. Even John Brown, 18.2 points. I mean, you got to love that.
Yeah, they did a really good job because we have 2 really good corners in Xavier and Howard, and Byron Jones. So
my goodness, that's the longest I've ever heard you think about somebody.
So Byron Jones and Xavier Howard are supposed to be Pro Bowl caliber guys, and we paid them a ton of money to come in and play. But what they did was they moved Diggs around and found matchups either with him in a safety or him in a nickel corner, which is the rookie. They call him Nelson Alphabet. Nelson Mbogne is his name. But so anyway, he is the rookie and he's susceptible, and they got it. Thank you. And he was able to find openings against, and they picked on the rookie and they won out basically. So.
All right, you guys know how I love some tight end sleepers, and if you really want one, I'm going to give you one here. It may pan out, it may not, but I just got some news that Dawson Knox suffered a concussion on Sunday.
Uh-oh.
So if you want to watch that a little bit, they're going up against the Rams this week, who we saw the tight ends be productive against in both of their first 2 games, for the most part. And it's a tough matchup. Reggie Gilliam, okay, he only had one target, 1 reception for 1 yard. But with Dawson Knox going out of the game, it seems like he could maybe a little sneaky action going on there. Just watch it. Up against the Rams.
Got to the end zone too, right?
Yeah,
Gilliam got into the end zone. Yep. Cool. Nothing significant, but just something to keep an eye on if there's more injuries coming up this week, because there sure were a lot of them, or if you were that guy that didn't get Jordan Reed, or you're stuck on there, and there's plenty of options out there on the waiver wire for
Jordan
tight ends.
Reed is another guy great to bring up when it moved. Go to the 49ers versus Jets to that game.
Yeah, and that game was a blowout from the moment they tossed the ball to the right to Raheem Mostert, and he took off down the sideline. Like it was the first touchdown that was scored on the day, and it was a dagger already. Like once your secondary and your linebackers can't get to a simple toss on the outside and contain him and make him cut back in some way, and he ran 23.1 miles an hour. That's the fastest anybody's run in the NFL in the last 2 seasons. Like it was over. Like the
crazy part about that whole thing was he did it again. The next series, unfortunately, it was called back, and then on the next play, he got banged up and he went out. Oh man, he would have been RB1 this week for sure.
For sure, yeah, he would have killed it.
Yeah, he was putting up Aaron Jones type stuff.
Yep. Yeah, he was going to compile a huge game against the Jets.
Yep.
Do we start calling it just Raheem Mostert type stuff? Because
he's the only person, yeah.
And the pass wasn't that long of a pass. He made it into a long reception. Caught it on the sideline at the 20-yard, like a 20-yard pass he caught, and he turned it up the field.
Which one? Mostert?
Yes.
No, I'm sorry. It was a toss play. It was a running play. It was just a simple pitch to the right, and it should have been contained by the defense. And somehow he made it to the corner and just took off and scored. It was unbelievable. Like, that's why the defense had. I don't know what the Jets were doing, but that's why what Mr. Swanson said though with the Colts going up against the Jets next week. Jonathan Taylor, like, DFS, line him up if you can trade for him somehow. If you're lucky enough to have him, God bless you, enjoy him, because he might have himself a day.
You know what? It's starting to seem like anybody that you have on your roster, even if they're a third string player, if they're going up against the Jets, fire them up, man.
Yeah, let them roll.
Yeah, because it's really starting to look gross over there. I mean, I feel bad for the 49ers going forward, though. You lose Jimmy G, you lose Mostert, you lose Coleman.
Nick Bosa.
Yeah, I was just about to get into that with Jimmy G being hurt, high ankle sprain.
Tough.
And you really can't rely on Nick Mullins as much as you'd like to. We saw him negative 0.36 fantasy points for the week. That's going to be tough. They're going to have a little tough time for the 49ers, especially with Mostert out and Tevin Coleman banged up as well. Jerick McKinnon, look for him to be the guy, possibly Jeff Wilson. And I wouldn't be surprised if they promoted JaMycal Hasty off the practice squad this week up against the Giants.
Yeah, I mean, you might be able to have some more options at running back in San Francisco to rely on as far as usage, because it's hard to have a running back by committee when you don't have a committee anymore. So Coleman could be a guy to definitely fire up. Oh no, what happened to Juan? Oh,
He's there. He's
right.
back. I'm interested to see what's going to happen with that 49ers backfield and see how long Mostert will be out. It doesn't look like anything too serious, not season-ending serious anyway. But I'm interested to see JaMycal Hasty if he does come out. Juan, we loved him coming out of college. He had a great Senior Bowl. We'll see what happens with that. Any other takeaways from this game? Jordan Reed. Oh, we talked about Jordan Reed. He finished tight end number 5 with 24 fantasy points.
Great day.
Wow.
Again, it was against the Jets, but it's something positive to look forward to with in case Kittle's still limited coming back.
And then the injury list continues for the Jets. We all know that Lev Bell was out with on IR with a hamstring injury for at least 2 to 3 more weeks. Jamison Crowder has a hamstring injury, trying to avoid IR this week. And Perriman sprained his ankle. So Braxton Berrios. Is it Braxton Berrios season? What is going on?
He won me a couple $2 in DFS this week. It was.
You played him in DFS?
Played him in DFS?
Yeah.
You sly dog, you.
Listen, somebody's got to get the opportunities. You're going to be losing, and at some point you're going to throw the ball, and there's no Richard Sherman. Like, there were a lot of factors going into that. Like, somebody's got to catch it. Someone's got to catch it, and I'm hoping Denzel Mims heals up for this week. If they can activate him off of IR, that'd be great, but it's a long shot. I think he's still got one more week to go. Chev, real quick before we move on out of this game, Mullins, surprisingly, he started 8 games for Jimmy G in 2018. And out of those 8 games, he had 6 games where he had over 250 yards passing. So not completely, at least it doesn't make me fade the pass catchers on that team. I wasn't starting Jimmy G anyway, but I'm definitely not starting Nick Mullins. I'm just saying it doesn't make me fade the pass catchers too much. And the offense in general, I'm not too scared. And they're playing, I'm sorry to say, they're playing your Giants next week. So whoever's going to run the ball, I expect them to have some success. And whoever the tight end is, for sure, you definitely want to look at and maybe possibly start depending on your options. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's an Ayuk game, or if they activate Sanu on time, he might be someone you can stream, depending on your roster and all the injuries that you have.
The last time Nick Mullins played the Giants was week 10 of 2018. He scored 17.7 fantasy points.
Serviceable. I mean,
serviceable if necessary. If necessary. I'm sure you could find somebody else more viable.
Right. But receivers probably, I mean, somebody could have had a game. The tight end might have had a game. So I wouldn't fade Jordan Reed in any way next week. I might fire him up again.
No, and I'll look more into that as we go in for this week upcoming, because Jordan Reed will definitely be on that waiver wire list.
Big time.
If I can look at it real fast, just a little Jordan Reed tidbit. Let's find him here on the list. Filibuster for me for just a second. I want to see how available.
We're going to jump back to it in a second. Yeah. There. Rams, Eagles, we're going to jump right. So Rams, Eagles, Wentz, not looking like himself. As an Eagles fan, goodness, I don't know if it's
got to hurt.
If it's all to him, if it's all Doug Peterson. it really hurts. Sanders had a serviceable fantasy day, finishing with 19.1 points as the RB9 as of now for Sunday anyway. Deshaun Jackson was getting targeted short. It was weird. It seemed like there was no script, like no actual pattern when it came to play calling. Deshaun Jackson wasn't doing Deshaun Jackson things because they weren't deep balls. They weren't, he wasn't running 9 routes and catching balls. Finishing with 12.4 fantasy points. So like a viable flex that week. Ertz finished with 9.2. Goddard finished with 7. Again, just like a running back by committee. Now there's a tight end by committee. It's a 2 tight end set. It's getting a little hard to rely on Ertz like it was in years past. Goddard's eaten into some of that production too.
With that target score, though, Mr. Swanson, with the 2 tight ends, it's kind of treating them like wide receivers. Like I know a lot of us play tight end premium leagues to kind of boost the morale, or like to boost the points of the tight end and make them more of a factor. If it's and make them like a wide receiver 2 flex play. I think that's what's happening with the Eagles, where Goddard and Ertz are kind of like your wide receiver 3 flex guy anyway, as far as opportunity.
They almost should be listed as wide receivers on the depth chart,
right?
Because we don't have any depth.
Yeah, we have no depth.
And the offensive line, I think, is what's hurting Wentz. And the whole narrative, I know we live in this area and we fall into immediately, I hate the starting quarterback, bring in the backup. What has the coach done for me lately? Like, they love to do that. Like, Andy Reid was a great coach, and you guys kind of like killed him a little bit. And he deserved some of his criticism, but you guys were a little harsh. This one takes you to the Super Bowl, and now people in this area kind of want to fire him already and give up on him. You're missing your offensive line, dude. Like, your offensive line is in shambles, and you were playing Aaron Donald. Yeah. Aaron Donald's a superhuman. Even if you had your full offensive line, he would give you trouble. So I would wait.
They gave Dallas trouble too last week.
Right. He's going to give everyone trouble. He's Aaron freaking Donald.
I found that Reed stat. Everybody go out and buy Jordan Reed for next week, even though Nick Mullins is the quarterback. He is only 6.3% owned in all fantasy leagues. Another great addition for your waiver wire. Just a note. Sorry, back to your scheduled broadcast.
I think we're
where are we at here? Are we on the Rams side of the ball? Did we talk Rams?
Yeah, to see what we saw from the Rams. Yeah.
All right. So what I saw for the Rams, unfortunately, Akers was banged up a little bit. It was Henderson's game, and that's where things got a little different in this background. We saw Henderson finish with 20.1 fantasy points, 12 carries for 81 yards and a touchdown, 2 receptions for 40 yards. Cam Akers banged up. I was trying to get a little bit more on the injury, and it says that he has a ribs injury, so he got ruled out for the game early, and it was early.
He hurt the ribs, and they took him right out. They took him down and got him x-rayed and all that. I'm not sure what the results were from that, but it did turn into that kind of a game for Darrell Henderson, who we saw flash a little bit last season. And this year, that committee's so it's so clustered that you don't know who's going to get it. It's unpredictable, and McVay loves it that way. He announced it before the season. Should be no surprise to us, but it's game script dependent. It's completely how they feel about the game and whether or not they're going to go with Brown. And whoever has success, they're going to ride the hot hand. So that's a tough one to decipher. That
one thing that we can decipher is the tight end position. Tyler Higbee finishing as tight end 1 again with 28.4 points. My man went off 5 for 54 and 3 touchdowns. Now, we said it earlier. We said it when we were watching Hard Knocks. McVay says, stay in the 12, stay in the 12. Man, they are staying in the 12. They are keeping those tight ends active. Gerald Everett finally back into the game, but more of a blocking tight end than anything else. He did not get any targets on the field. Cooper Kupp did okay, 12 points. Robert Woods got into the end zone. Van Jefferson.
That was a nice play call. That little toss play to Robert Woods, that was a nice little play call. The little fake double reverse and then actually double reverse, and it was nice.
Yeah, it was great. It was absolutely great.
Oh, but real quick, breaking news here. 49ers received a lot of bad injury news as of yesterday, but Jimmy G is not out of the question for next week.
Wow.
There's a high percentage that he will play.
With a high ankle sprain?
They should
Michael Thomas, and he's out tonight. So,
we'll see how we got to watch. That's one you got to watch.
Different position, kind of athlete, but we'll see.
In a week,
maybe
just
he rubs some dirt
decimated by people who aren't going to come back for the season. It's nice to see that somebody will come back sooner rather than later.
It's good to have a little optimism. You're right.
Yeah.
All right, moving right along because it's almost game time. Broncos versus Steelers. Steelers win this one 26-21. Key injuries out the gate. Oh, my goodness. We started with Philip Lindsay out for 2 to 4 weeks with a sprained toe from week 1. Melvin Gordon was going to get the full workload. And then we had more injuries start out. Drew Lock in the first quarter, rotator cuff injury. He's going to be out for at least 2 weeks. And Cortland Sutton, the worst news for this team, he will be out for the rest of the season with a torn ACL.
That one hurts because he just came back from the shoulder injury and he tried to play through it and he was tough and he came out there and he played and he played okay. He was, holding his own, and then there goes the ACL and there goes his season. It's a shame too. Promising young wide receiver.
Right. I think it was a pretty well-balanced game. Their Broncos defense did hold up pretty well throughout the game. There were a couple of passes from Big Ben looking like a Duck Hodges kind of thing, like, those little toss-up lobs that didn't go anywhere. But then you saw flashes of the old Big Ben looking a little bit more comfortable, had a couple nice ones to Deontay Johnson, and then another one out to Chase Claypool on the outside. And Deontay Johnson finished as wide receiver number 6 with 23.2 fantasy points this week. Definitely, Juan, you called him from the get-go. He was one of your guys this year that you were trying to grab everywhere. And if you listened to Juan this week, one of a kind, did it again. Deontay Johnson, man, he's going to be good.
Yeah, I fired him up in every single lineup. I had him in all my dailies, everywhere else. It's just he's a value play, and I love history. Like Mr. Swanson, we love to talk about history in football, and for me, it's too easy to go back to 2 years ago and see second-year Juju with Antonio Brown on the other side and not see Deontay Johnson either being AB or Juju, and they were both top 10. So if Ben is anywhere near what Ben was, I love Deontay Johnson going forward.
Nice.
I agree. And I'll bite on that. Deontay Johnson should fit the mold perfectly.
I'm shocked. Like, I'm pretty sure he's not 100% owned, but by this week coming up, like, he's got to be 100% owned. And if you have him, you'd be hard pressed with all the injuries to Kenny Golladay and Chris Godwin and Michael Thomas, like all those players that are out. You have to, like, Deontay Johnson.
While you can.
Get him while you can and put him in your lineup.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know how owned he is. I mean, I could try to look for you later on and I'll post it. Oh, wait, no, I found it. I think I got it. Yes. 84% owned. You are not finding him on your waiver wire unless you are
you
looking.
might, because you might be part of that 16%.
You might be, that's 16%. He should be 100% owned after this week. That's for sure.
And if he's rostered, people might be thinking about fading him or not playing him, or they might think they have better options on their team. But this week, like, I had Jarvis Landry and Deontay Johnson in the league, and I benched Jarvis Landry, started Deontay Johnson, and it worked out perfectly for me. So so when you see a matchup or when you see a guy that's blossoming, like coming into his own, like, it's undeniable anymore that DK Metcalf is a number 1 receiver. Like, he did that last night. So, like, when guys take that next step, that little leap forward, like, you got to jump on it before everybody else does. The guys that jumped on Godwin last year early, they came out on top in most of their fantasy leagues, and it worked out for them. And he could put up a season similar to what Godwin put up last year.
Right. One more takeaway from this game. James Conner finished with 20.01 fantasy points, finishes running back 10. Benny Snell, negative 1.9 fantasy points. So that means when Conner is healthy, it's his ball. He is the workhorse. Jalen Samuels, very irrelevant for this football game as well. And then 2 more bright spots. Melvin Gordon finishing with 16.4 fantasy points as running back 17, which is respectable considering what was going on. And Noah Fant, 4 for 57 and a touchdown, finishing as tight end number 8 on the week with Jeff Driscoll as the quarterback.
Yep.
So Jeff Driscoll, I wouldn't mind playing Jeff Driscoll in place of Drew Lock. I'm looking at their schedule now, and, well, maybe not this week. They play Tampa Bay in week 3, but if he's not back in week 4, Mr. Driscoll will be available in week 4 against the New York Jets.
There you go.
Which he could have a good lineup there. So if you're set for quarterback this week, but you have a bad matchup in week 4, I suggest picking up Jeff Driscoll this week. And if you have room on your roster, and just holding him for a week, if you have a bad week 4 matchup.
Especially if you're the Noah Fant owner and you're having quarterback troubles, get Driscoll.
Oh, if you have Noah Fant, that's a great stack.
That's a
That's
nice
a great stack right there.
Or with Judy, I think Judy's going to end up being the number one, and against the Jets, he might have some form of success. But the Jets have been getting picked on by the tight end, so Noah Fant's a really good play in Week 4.
Absolutely.
Right. So you mentioned the Bucs a little bit earlier, and that Bucs defense is kind of for real, and we saw that this week, right? We were able to see. And I love going forward, but the Bucs defense is solid, man. Like, especially against the run, like we saw them stifle McCaffrey, and of course, unfortunately, McCaffrey got injured in that game. But they were
high ankle sprain, out for 4 to 6 weeks, man. Christian McCaffrey, it's sad. Good news though, Chris Godwin's coming back. Concussion clear. He's cleared for activity in Week 3.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I bought into a lot of the Godwin stock in the offseason, so I'm glad he's coming back from injury and he's going to be able to play. Yeah, Mike Evans had a monster game. He's back to being Mike Evans. He does that. He has a boom game, and then he has an off game. And he finished with 23 fantasy points. He had over 104, and he had a touchdown. And he could have had another touchdown too. Brady missed him a little bit, but
the couple takeaways that I had on the Panther side of the ball was that Bridgewater, he only finished with 9.68 fantasy points. He threw for 367 yards on 42 attempts. 33 of them were successful. And we saw DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson eat once again. 20 fantasy points for DJ and 16.9 for Robbie Anderson. And a pedestrian 5.9 again for Curtis Samuel. I think it's just game script of moving the ball downfield. And I think we upgrade Robbie Anderson to a playable, viable flex play this week coming up.
I'm interested to see going forward for the Panthers with McCaffrey out for these 4 to 6 weeks. Do they use Samuel more in like a Debo Samuel kind of role? I know they have the same name, so it's convenient, but he's really a power athlete, a guy that can run the ball. And he's super fast. He's got 4.3 speed. So maybe they utilize him more in the underneath stuff and some of that swing pass game that you saw from McCaffrey, or when they put McCaffrey over in the slot and play him, I think he might get a little bit more targets. In Week 1, he had 8 targets, did Samuel. So I know he hasn't done too much with the targets yet, but I still am holding out hope that Curtis Samuel's going to be a viable flex play at some point this season.
Got a question here from our boy Zach. Zach, thank you for tuning in again.
Hey, Zach. What's up, Zach?
Dude, right here. Zach wants to know, what is our opinion on T.Y. Hilton so far?
Ooh.
Wasn't needed in Week 2 and would probably himself say that it lackluster in Week 1. He had a couple drops in Week 1 and he was critical of himself after the game. And he said as much that he said he'd cost himself that game against the Jags. And he was open and he was doing normal T.Y. Hilton things. So going forward, depending on the game script and who they're playing. So
they're playing the Jets next week. T.Y. Hilton, his stock is going to go up.
You have to start T.Y. Hilton this week because at some point they're not just going to give it to Jonathan Taylor 40 times.
And with the news of Paris Campbell being hurt and we don't know the full extent of it yet, T.Y. Hilton should be a factor. Michael Pittman also a factor.
8 to 10 targets a game from now on for T.Y. seem like reasonable numbers, and he should make good on the opportunities more so than he did in Week 1. And then Week 2, they just really kind of didn't need him, and it was over early.
Yeah, but still feeling positive about T.Y. for sure.
100%.
Before we go any further, Monday Night Football has kicked off. The Saints versus the Raiders. We're just going to jump ahead a little bit and talk about this game. As of right now, the Saints are driving down the field. They are on the 45-yard line, and it's 3rd and 2. Michael Thomas not in this game. What do you think the outcome is? Yeah, Michael Thomas is out. And who steps up for Michael Thomas this week?
Manuel Sanders.
Manuel Sanders.
That's your man, Mr. Swanson.
It is. That is my man. I love Sanders. But also, Juan, as I'm sure you're about to say, go ahead.
No, you say it.
Tre'Quan Smith. Smith is the other guy to step up for that role. And I think, those two for sure. Wide receiver was.
Tre'Quan Smith and Emmanuel Sanders are on the field as of right now.
I think Cook and Kamara see an uptick in targets this game, and it's going to depend on touchdowns for Cook, whether or not. But I think if there's going to be a big play, it's going to be to Tre'Quan. And if anybody can exploit a bad secondary, it's Sean Payton and Drew Brees. And that secondary for the Raiders is not very good. So they're going to be put to the test this week. We're going to see what happens because even though they don't have Michael Thomas, they can still attack you deep. Like Tre'Quan's a different kind of guy. So the reason I like him is because he can take you deep as opposed to Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders that are mostly possession guys. Sanders has the double moves and the great route running, and he can do that too, but not like Tre'Quan. Like he's the more explosive guy. And if they take a couple shots, I wouldn't be shocked if he hits a long home run here.
Well, Sanders just dropped a pass. It was a 2-yard pass, but we saw before that Kamara running for a first down.
I don't know if this qualifies
10 yards.
as disseminating the NFL games, right?
Yeah, can we just stay on live stream and call the game right here? You got a TV over there, Juan? You want to turn it on?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Calling it better than the other guys. Oh, Traquan Smith with a big grab for looks like 30 yards. Oh, there's a flag on the play.
Flag on the play, bring it back. Hey, I'm looking to see how Jacobs does. Marcus Davenport isn't playing defensive end again for the Saints. It hurts their run defense a little bit. I'm looking for a nice little game from Jacobs, and I'm excited to see what Ruggs and Edwards are going to do in Renfro and how that offense is going to pan out for the Raiders. If they're negative and they're behind, and it becomes one of those come from behind type games. Jacobs was used in the passing game, but I want to see what they do with Ruggs. Like, he's an electric weapon, and I want to see him out there. He was questionable coming into the game, but he's going to play, so I'm excited for this game.
I'd say look for Waller a lot in this game. He will be all open. Yeah. We saw O.J. Howard get a couple targets last week when the Tampa Bay Bucks played the Saints. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a decent game along with Renfro in that slot, especially if Ruggs and Edwards are on the outside. But yeah, it's going to be a great one. I'm eager to see what Jacobs does against this Saints defense, and I think that the Saints will score first, especially since they are on the 20-yard line.
The 20-yard line right now, yeah.
It's good Saints, man. And
hard-hitting analysis.
First game in Vegas, though, baby. First game in Vegas. I'm excited. Let's go watch this thing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Real quick, who wins?
Saints.
I'll go Saints to 34-27. I'm calling the score.
34. You're calling a score 34-27.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh. I don't know if I go that high. I want to say 28-24.
Okay.
I'll go 31-27.
Close game, too. We're all right there.
Yeah.
If any of those happen, it's going to be a fantasy relevant game, and we're going to have a good time talking about it on Wednesday when we record the tilt. And it's going to be a good night.
Sure is. Thank you guys for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back with some more breakdowns from what happened in week 2 and what to look forward to in week 3.
Yeah, this is just a trial run per se on what's going on. We're going to be doing this more often on Mondays. Hopefully we start a little bit earlier before the game starts. But hey. Traquan Smith almost caught a touchdown.
He gets in the end zone tonight.
Yeah, I think he does. But Will Lutz is actually going to come out and kick a field goal. All right, guys, I think that'll wrap it up for tonight. Everybody that's in the chat and watching, thank you for coming out. You can check us out at thetiltisreal.com. I'm going to play the live outro. It'll fill you in a little bit better that Mr. John Swanson puts together so eloquently. And follow us on Twitter. You can follow me at FF_chef. My main man Juan at FF One of a Kind, and Peasy Belizy at FF John Swanson. We are the Tilt is Real Fantasy Football Podcast, and thanks for spending some time with us on Monday night.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Oh,
Peace.
Wait.
What?
We're back. One more. Zach, you guys think Breeze will still perform without Thomas? Zach, thank you.
This week. Yeah, thanks, Zach. Listen, and especially this week. With this matchup, like I said, that secondary is a little bit suspect. You saw them drive down the field on the first drive. Let's see what happens throughout the game. But, yeah, I think he's still going to be okay. He's going to perform.
For sure. Zach, thank you again.
It might be a little dump-off passes to Kamara more so often. It looks like he's targeting the middle of the field as of right now and not stretching it down so far yet. I think he's going to stay away from Abrams this week.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Cook, Kamara, Sanders on slants. It's going to be that kind of game, but he'll still, flourish. The yards after catch are going to be ridiculous for Kamara and those guys, so it's going to be fun to watch, and I think he will perform.
All right, guys, that'll wrap it up. Thanks for tuning in, and we will check you out. Don't forget, podcast will be live Thursday morning. We will be out there. Come check it out, the Tilt is Real Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you, and enjoy the Monday night football game. Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Tilt is Real Fantasy Podcast. Check out our website at thetiltisreal.com for weekly articles, breakdowns, and more. Follow us on Twitter at TIR_pod. We'll see you Tilters next week.